Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. And all three of us are professional illustrators. All three of us have worked for all the major publishers in the business. We've published somewhere around 50 books, and we've all taught illustration at different universities.
Each week we pick a different topic in illustration. Sometimes we agree. Sometimes we argue, like Will promised us to do today. But you're always going to learn something brand new.
I promised you that I would win the arguments.
Oh, not only are we going to argue, but you're going to win the argument. Hey, speaking of arguments, I want to talk a little bit about, just real quick, a comment that I read yesterday on one of our podcasts. I don't know which one it was because I was going through just a couple of them. This is so good. It says
iTunes
this is on YouTube. So if you guys ever want to watch us, you guys can go to YouTube, SVSLearn. We have all the videos up there.
No, it's Society of Visual Storytelling.
Oh, it is? Okay, whatever. I don't know.
See, okay, wait. The counter is 1-0 so far. Okay.
Will's feisty today. But the comment was, it was on YouTube, and it says, the content is the same, whether you're listening to it as a podcast or you're at the YouTube or watching it on YouTube. But the one difference on YouTube is I get to watch Lee eating his lunch.
That's a good comment.
I told Lisa that, and she's like, "Wait, you eat your lunch during the podcast?" And I was like, "You know what? I don't even know. I didn't even think. I don't think I would. But then that is exactly something I would do and forget that we're being recorded."
I've done my laundry during the podcast.
Sitting there folding laundry.
I've done some shopping. I've done shopping on Amazon during the podcast.
I could tell.
Well, I've done that.
What do you think? Well, yeah, I agree with you guys.
No, he would say, I disagree. Whatever you said, it's the opposite.
That's right. I used to draw during the podcast, but then it was usually back in the days when one of you would be steering the whole ship and be like, "This is my topic," and
preparing it, yeah.
And kind of walk us through, and I'd be like, I get to take the day off, and I can just draw and throw in a comment here.
Those days are over.
But now I'm trying to give it way more attention. So, guys, I am watching a TV show, and you know how we talked about before, be careful how much time you spend watching a show or playing a video game, because if it eats into productivity and into your work, it could be a real danger to you not accomplishing stuff. Because I really do I think there needs to be a balance, and there's so much stuff out there that you can't, you could watch TV all day and not ever have to repeat a TV show, an episode or anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of content.
There's a lot of content. And so I think for that reason, it sometimes shows just seem impenetrable to me. But I heard about this show. It's called For All Mankind. It's on, I think, Apple Plus, Apple TV, whatever. And you could not make a show better designed to entice all of my cravings in entertainment, right? So what it is it's alternate history of the space race. And
but nonfiction. Real?
No, it's alternate history. So it's not real. So it's based in reality. So you have some of the same characters like Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong still were the guys to set foot on the moon. But essentially the Russians never put a man on the moon. This whole thing is what if they did, and what if they were very aggressive about what their moon program? How would the U.S. react to that? And so this whole thing is going back and forth of they do something, the U.S. does something, they do something, the U.S. does something, and it's just it's kind of like what if you were ever growing up and really into space and the space race and all that kind of stuff, and you wished by now, by 2021, we should have had a base on Mars for 20 years already.
So there's Martians.
This is satisfying that fantasy
There's Martians in it.
No, there's no well, not yet. I'm only 3 episodes into it.
I feel like though, if the show said this takes place in space, you're on board no matter what. Anyway,
yeah, that's true.
You're an easy sell.
It's true.
I like that model though. There's a word I think I read about it yesterday called I don't know if it's called docudrama or something like that, where they weave in a narrative into real events and real people and stuff. There's a new, I think it's a movie on Netflix called American Animals. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that one? It's where these four college kids try to, or they break in and they steal one of like the original versions of like the Audubon like watercolor volumes, like super rare volume. And there's like a first edition Darwin Origin of Species book. And anyway, these kids set up to steal it, and it's fictional in that how they're filming it, but then the real people are part of it too. The actual people who are involved in real life. And so it's kind of this blend of retelling and true, real people. It's cool.
That is cool. The reason I bring this up is, as illustrators, we're storytellers, right? And so we're not just drawing pictures, but we're drawing pictures to tell a story. And I just love, I love how, and maybe there's something there you could do with children's books or do with comic books or something like that. But taking something which we all think we know the story to, and then twisting it and adding a little bit something different to make it a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more address some of the issues that we deal with today more so than have been dealt with in the past, just to make it relevant. So I don't know. Just throwing that out there. If you like sci-fi, not sci-fi, I would say if you like sci-real, science real, science alternate, go check out that show. That's Jake's recommendation for the week.
Docu-sci.
Docu-sci. Docu-sci. That works for me. We got a few questions today we want to dig into. Before we get into that, quick update. What have you guys been working on? What's been like your main push these days?
Well, the last month, as I'm sure all of our answers are going to be the same thing, we're putting out this giant children's book class called Children's Book Pro. This is not an ad for it, a planned ad for it or anything. This is just literally what we've been doing. And normally we weave in our personal work and our professional work and then our teaching with SVSLearn.com kind of all weaved in together in our weeks. And so we're kind of all 3 of us working on different stuff, but we decided to just get rid of all of our normal projects and 5 days a week power at this thing. So I literally I was doing the tarot deck, I put it on hold, and until all the content gets done. It's a massive amount of content. It's so much, but I'm having a blast filming it.
So, but I didn't stop production on my book. So Lee, the counter's now 2, because you're wrong on that. I sent that book off to my publisher.
Well, my counter's 1 though, because your contribution is a little weaker. I'm doing it full time.
Yeah, somebody has to pick up the slack.
That's right.
There's a reason for that, Will. Yeah, me and Jake are sitting here planning all of it. You're sitting back. Will shows up. I'm not kidding. Will shows up on the days. Okay, guys, what am I doing?
I have the best partners. That's the advice I would give to anybody who partners up. Make sure you partner with people who will do more work than you.
Well, it's like when you have that star basketball player, and so the team's practicing all the time, they're learning all the things, and then he shows up on game day, and it's like, all right, just tell me what the plan is. Just give me the ball. And that's kind of what we're doing with Will. Is we're like, okay, you got the ball. He shoots a 3-pointer. It all works out.
I don't think he's the star. I think that analogy puts a little too much glamour on him. I think he's like a studio musician, and me and Jake are the band. And you're like the bass player that shows up who can play anything, but we got to show you what to play, tell you where your part is, and then you do it.
As the senior member, I'm too old to learn this stuff.
Too old to be like to work.
Be responsible. Yeah.
But going back to this course, I mean, at this point, by the time this podcast airs, we're going to have people who are, halfway through it. Hopefully we're getting a lot of good feedback from it. But the amount of information that we're putting into this course, as far as like how to do children's books, I think the coolest thing about it is we hired authors. We got these 2 authors who we've worked with in the past to write sort of just a contemporary take on classic fairy tales, essentially doing them in a word count where it would fit in a modern day children's book. And so this course is, you get a manuscript that you could just start illustrating to. You can make a book dummy to. We show you how to paginate. We show you like how would you design the characters? How would you design the environments? And so by the end of it, people should have, if they're able to do all the work involved, they should have, some portfolio pieces, something that shows to an art director that they can.
A lot of portfolio pieces, not just 1 or 2. I mean, it'll be a full portfolio if you did every assignment in the class.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. So if
Will doesn't know that because he hasn't seen the assignments yet, but it's a lot of assignments. I'm just kidding. Will knows it.
If you didn't get in. If you're listening to this, and you're like, shoot, I missed it. We're going to be relaunching it again for a second group to go through it. And we're going to run it, a few times like that. And each time I think we refine it. We learn a little bit from the first group, how we can improve it, make it better. But eventually we'll be adding on more and more availability to like masterminds, to have access to, full access to professional illustrators to like work with you one-on-one on some things. So yeah, we're excited about it. I think it'll be good. And hopefully we can, raise up a generation of people who are like really capable and able to like do children's books. I think that'll be cool.
Yep.
All right, couple questions. Let's get into our questions for today. First question comes from Christy, and it's titled, "My name is question mark. Hey guys, okay, using your name as your brand." That's sort of what she wants to get into. Using your name as a brand. It came up in an online shop podcast, and I also saw the story about Nightshade Berry that was recently sent out and got me thinking. Do you guys know what Nightshade Berry is?
No
Have any idea what that is? Okay, so maybe our listeners know what's going on there, but I don't know what that is. But I think we could get to the core of what this question is. I absolutely do not want to use my full real name when I become an illustrator because I just don't gel with it, to be honest. Currently, I use, quote, "the wandering artist" for my business, which is my online shop selling art cards as well as doing trade shows, festivals, etc. But it feels weird using this as an author illustrator name on books. I've also thought about just creating a whole new name for myself. Has anyone had experience with what works best? It's something I'm struggling to make a decision on and wonder if there are others out there who feel the same. So I assume the Nightshade Berry thing is maybe that's somebody's like online name and they're maybe using that on their publishing stuff as well. And there might be confusion. I don't know. We'll have to look it up. We need a 4th person on here to do like internet research while we're talking.
I looked and it's. I mean, all I got on Google was actually, it's a family, and the berries are a family of the nightshades. So like an actual plant. So I don't know how it's being used in this context.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like Nightshade Berry Illustrator or something like that.
Yeah.
Nightshade Berry sounds like a serial killer.
Yeah, it does. The Nightshade Berry strikes again. Anyways, I actually dealt with this like 15 years ago. I realized what happened. Let's do it like deep dive in the history of the internet. What happened was the internet came really popular in like late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, that's when the .com boom was happening. That's when people were just getting online. Computers were getting modems, all this stuff. Everything's getting connected. And so there was this real like scare, like, do you put your real name on the internet because it could be used, like, there's security reasons there. Someone has your name, they could find out where you live or whatever like that. People are really scared about that. Nobody's scared about that anymore, really, to some degree. I know people who do like share their name, but maybe they won't share where they live or, their children. They'll never show pictures of their children, stuff like that. And there's 100 different ways you could be safe on the internet and should be safe on the internet. But early on, I was like, I'm just going to come up with an internet nickname. And my nickname was Agent 44. And on the forums, I was Agent 44, all the different art forums. When I started to get into social media, like my Twitter handle was at Agent 44. And when I bought a domain name, it was agent44.com because that was sort of my online name. That's how people associated my art to it. And then I started, like, I wanted to get a book deal. I wanted to get into children's books. I wanted to get into graphic novels. And I thought, can I put Agent 44 on the cover of a book? Would that be like of a children's book? Would that be weird? And it made me realize, like, I should probably shift my brand to me as a person, so that when a book comes out and it says by Jake Parker, people know that they can go to jakeparker.com, or mrjakeparker.com. Jakeparker.com is already taken. But so I made this transition about 11 years ago, 10 years ago, to like shift everything over from Agent 44 to either Jake Parker or Mr. Jake Parker. And Mr. was just a way to like, because Jake Parker is kind of a common name. So it was just a way to like have something that I could own. And it's worked out. It's worked out pretty good for me. Her question is, should you, if you don't want to use your real name, should you come up with like a pen name or an artist name or something like that? What do you guys think about that? I know, Lee, you've experimented with this a little bit too.
I have.
Well,
yeah. With your,
you've got
Antonio Blanco.
I haven't yet. I just use that informally and at shows and stuff like that. But I haven't actually put that on anything. You got to be careful. I always think about an interview I read with Dave Grohl from Nirvana. He'll always be from Nirvana.
Foo Fighters.
Yeah. And so that was what he said in the interview, is that they were asking him if he could do anything different, what would it be? And he said, I would have changed the name of the Foo Fighters. He hated the name,
really?
but he was stuck with, yeah. He's like, it's such a stupid name. And I agree.
I love that name. They fight Foo. I mean, that's an important job.
There's nobody else fighting the Foo right now, so
someone's got to fight the Foo.
Sole tasked with fighting the Foo. But he didn't like it, but he sort of.
How do you follow up Nirvana? Like, that's the perfect name for a band, right?
I know. Yeah, but there's a ton of perfect names for bands. I mean, or at least good. Nirvana is a great name, but there's a lot of good names. But the Foo Fighters, man, I don't know. I think
Here's the thing: you got Lee White, Will Terry, and they're short names. Jake Parker, they're easy to spell. I think
the first name is one syllable. The second name is two syllables.
Yeah.
I tell you how lazy I am. Part of my reason for going with Lee White Illustration is that, setting up your business, you have to file a DBA, doing business as notice. Like if you're going to do like Whirly Gig Illustration or whatever, you got to do a couple of steps, and then also getting a bank account in that name. Like you have to formally have a business account, and with a bank, I mean, I don't know how it is back then because I haven't set up a new bank account in so long, but back then you had to provide all this documentation that you are a business. Right. And I just didn't have that going either. And so it just seemed like I was running into these little bitty, office kind of roadblocks. And so I just said, all right, Lee White Illustration. It's easier to file your taxes using your social security number. So it all just kind of lined up for ease.
I mean, I think it depends on the person and the situation. Like I was able to get willterry.com early on, right? And that made a huge difference on me using my name. Some people can't get their name.com.
Good point.
also really hard to spell names, and long names. I would probably lean towards advising to go with something easier. You have artists like Banksy, right, who are super successful with a pseudonym. And I personally think it's just whatever you pick, you've got to commit to it. So,
but don't do a Foo Fighter, because then you got it for 20 years, 30 years.
You better like it. Christy's saying, she doesn't gel with her name. We don't know why, but maybe
there's been illustrators that have done that. I mean, Glenn Dibley, you remember him? That was a pseudonym or a pen name.
Right.
Can you think of any others?
Yeah, Obert Sky, the author Obert Sky.
About Berkeley, what's his last name? Breathed.
I listened to another podcast called Script Notes. It's I mentioned that before, but it's about screenwriting and storytelling and stuff like that. The one of the guys on there is named John August, and August isn't his real last name, or it wasn't the last name he was given at birth. He has since legally changed it, and he changed it when he moved to Hollywood because his last name was like this long, I don't know if it was hard to pronounce or if it was
like Dahmer or something like that.
No, it just wasn't a normal name. And he said, I didn't want to move to a city where there would be lots of meetups and, lots of meetings where I have to introduce myself and meet new people. And I didn't want like every discussion to be where my last name was from and about that last name. I just wanted to introduce myself and get right into it. And so he actually pulled, I think August was his mom's maiden name or something like that. And he said, just change it to John August. It sounds cool. I never have to like explain it or anything. There's never a discussion about it. There's never a question of how it's spelled. And it's just made my life so much easier. So, that's an option there. It's like if you have like a really hard last name, maybe it's a different language or something. The spelling gets messed up. It's hard to search for. Then start doing business as and going by something really simple and catchy. So I think that's good advice. But again, it's like I honestly feel like Foo Fighters. That's a good example. Like it would be like Agent 44. I came up with as a teenager as well. And that's why I kind of stuck with it, because in my early 20s, I was like, it works, whatever. But, is that something I want to be known for professionally? Is Foo Fighters, like there's a regret there. So I would sit down, really.
Check this out. Sorry to cut it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just starting to repeat myself over and over. So you stop that cycle.
I found out, I just got so excited. I had to interrupt you that for my I love like Brothers Grimm, like, darker children's books, and I would prefer to do that style of book with that leans a little bit darker. And I just found out that nightshadeberry.com is available. Like not Barry B-E-R-R, but Barry B-A-R-R-Y.
Like
Nightshade
like
Berry,
the guy changing your oil.
Nightshade Berry Manilow is going to be my full pen name. How great of a name is that for a creepy children's book illustrator? Is Nightshade Berry. Oh,
I will say too, that reminded me of another guy. What's his name? So why can't I remember? Oh, Dave. His name is Dave. Dang it. Anyways,
Dave Dang It? That's a great name.
His name is Dave Dang It. There's another name for you. Dave Dang It. Dave Cooper. That's his name. Dave Cooper. I talked about it before.
That really fun, whimsical, pop surrealist kind of stuff.
Pop surrealist stuff. Lots of naked ladies. Like lots
not so whimsical.
Whimsical naked ladies. But I have a children's book done by him, and the children's book is by Hector Mumbley. And I think the purpose there is just like the publisher's like, listen, we can't have, families Googling Dave Cooper looking for your book and get, get this really surreal, crazy pop.
They're tastefully done, but not for
Well,
children.
still, yeah, different market.
It's definitely it's definitely a thing he's got going on there. Yeah, it's very well rendered. Guy knows how to paint. That's for sure.
I love it. But so the bottom line on this one is basically do what you want, but commit to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's number 3 because I got that right. And
We all
Nightshade
answered
Bear.
that question.
Will's
Well,
taking
that's
credit for Will's taking wins when there's no win.
Lee, you
So
got
it's-
work to do.
like
here.
desperate,
You should focus
desperate.
on the task at hand.
Will
Can I
needs a
just-
W.
Can I just say? Oh, I wanted to add too. My business name, my actual business name. So what's on the contracts is JP Creative, not Jake Parker. So I don't know. That was one of those things where I was like, it was one of those. I got to come up with a name today, and let's see I'll just use my initials. And what do? I do creative work. JP Creative. There it is.
I will say this. If you are starting different businesses, you should have different business names, because if for some reason, there's a breach of contract and you get sued or something, they can only attack the assets in that individual business, and they can't attack everything that you
Can't
own.
take your house.
They can't attack your other businesses. If you're doing business under your name for every single thing you do, that's actually legally dangerous.
Are you guys registered as an LLC for your illustration
Yeah.
business?
Right.
It'd be really smart. I'm not, so I'm vulnerable. Anybody who wants to sue Nightshade Barry Manilow can sue me.
wait.
I'm not.
Lee White doesn't have an LLC for.
No,
That's so crazy to me because
I know.
you have everything so dialed in.
Except the LLC.
That
number
is
4.
interesting.
I know, right?
I thought
Whoever
that would
wants
be
to
like
sue me
item number 1 on your agenda for like graduating college, like start my LLC and go to business.
I think the reason was I didn't have any assets to protect.
Yeah.
And so I just never did it. And then now, actually, I need to go ahead and register for that. So by the time you guys hear this, both Lee White and Nightshade Barry Manilow will both be an LLC.
If you're in the business of giving advice,
You should take the advice, right? Take the advice you give, whatever. Moving on. Next question. Josh
That's an L
says,
for Will.
Josh says, fan art in a portfolio? Hey guys, my question is, should fan art not be included at all in one's portfolio? I'm hoping to
Hey,
gear
wait.
my
So
portfolio.
sorry. I need to cut you off.
Yeah.
How did he? What punctuation did he use to get that level of?
It's a question mark
Excitement.
exclamation point.
Okay, that was
combo.
good because it sounds like a question, but it's an excited question or like a
Yeah.
ramped up. So if you guys aren't using the quamation, that's what that's called.
Did you just make that up just now?
No,
Acclamation.
it really is.
Oh, it really is?
I think so. I need to Google it because I'm not sure if I'm making that up or not.
An exclamation.
Quamation. Hold on.
Can I finish the
Quama-
question?
That's how easy distracted I am. I just wanted to know because you said it exactly as a question, but an excitedly
Yeah.
asked question. So
this is like
It's
all
like-
of our business meetings, you guys.
It's like when the
think-
kids come downstairs at breakfast time and it's not oatmeal, but it's waffles. And they're like, waffles?
exclamation point and question mark. I may have made that up. I think did I just totally make that up? I thought that was a thing, but maybe it's not a thing. I totally
What
made
is
that
it? Acclamation?
up. Quamation.
Acclamation. All right.
Oh,
you guys
boom. That's a win.
witnessed.
That's a huge win right there.
That's a huge win. I would go trademark that right away, start selling t-shirts.
Nightshade Barry with his quamation.
I get rid of Nightshade Berry, man. I'm not
like that?
feeling that. It's a Foo Fighter name.
Okay,
It's
what
a-
about
you're-
What about Bittersweet Berry?
Oh, that's better.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't like the berry. I like Nightshade.
Yeah.
I like Bittersweet. I don't like berry.
Berry's funny.
Change
All
it
right,
to gumdrop.
go ahead.
Okay.
Gary
Josh
Gumdrop.
says, fan art in a portfolio? Hey guys, my question is, should fan art not be included at all in one's portfolio? I'm hoping to gear my portfolio more towards comics And I've been told to include pieces in one's portfolio that are like the work you want to do. So if the big comic companies are the ones I want to work for, would including Spider-Man, Batman covers be a bad idea or a good way to show what you're able to do? I really enjoy 3PP and SVS. Keep it up. All right. Here's the deal. If you want to work for any company that does comics and you want to do those comics for them, like DC or Marvel, or I wouldn't say like Dark Horse because a lot of it is creator owned, but Dark Horse does own like the Aliens property. They own the Predator, I believe. If you want to do that, you've got to have that stuff in your portfolio. So you got to show, I know how to draw Batman. I know how to draw Superman. I can draw Wonder Woman. And your portfolio for comics portfolio doesn't, unless you want to be a comics cover artist, which everybody does, but nobody's hiring for that. Usually you kind of, you either really plant a flag in, like I'm going to be a comic book cover artist, and that's all you do. Or I think sometimes a better way to get into the comics industry is actually drawing comics. So, your portfolio is going to have to show 4 or 5 or 20 pages of Batman doing Batman stuff in comic form. So that's what your portfolio is going to be. Now, if you want to get a job at like Disney, or Disney Animation Studios or Cartoon Network or something like that, they're not really going to look for fan art, and they're not going to really want to see like, I don't think they're going to want to see like Nickelodeon's not going to want to see like SpongeBob, your take on SpongeBob, unless you could do an exact on model version of SpongeBob. But what they do want to see is that you can think creatively, that you've got your own ideas, that you have a style that can match the stuff that they're doing. So that portfolio needs to reflect that. So same with like video game companies, fan art's not going to work in your portfolio for a video game company, but work that looks like it could be made inside that studio is going to work for that portfolio. Anyways, you guys have thoughts on this as well?
I'd say there's an exception might be that if you do, so I totally agree with if you're going to work for a comic book company that does Batman and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But if you're going to work for someone else or looking for work with someone else, the fact that everyone knows, the property Batman, for instance, if you do something really creative that has never been done before with Batman, that's funny, that's disturbing, that's something that's, where the person looking at it will, it'll spark an emotion in them. You'll be remembered. I mean, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
If you do something that really resonates with them, it won't matter. They'll be like, you're the guy that did that really super funny thing with Batman, and your portfolio does kind of fit with what we're doing. And all of a sudden that could be the thing that gets you in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what constitutes fan art? Where does fan art cross the line into being a reimagined property? Like, for example, if I were to do a Harry Potter cover, they did have different artists doing Harry Potter covers, for the different releases and stuff. And if you Google Harry Potter covers, they're, all the different ones around the world are totally different. They're not just Mary Grand Prix. There are hundreds of different ones. And so is that fan art if I did a Harry Potter cover, or is that a reimagined property?
I think it's 2 words for the same thing, probably.
I view fan art as being derivative, and I view a new take on a property as being original, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah. Maybe it's like this. What'd you call it? Derivative? No, what'd you call it? It's fan art and what was the term?
A reimagined property.
Okay. How about this? All reimagined properties are fan art, but not all fan arts are reimagined properties.
I like it.
Does that work? Okay.
That's good.
So
that's good.
I think that's a really good strategy too. If you want to get into doing book covers or, I would say book covers and publishing, or even children's books. If you were, I'm actually not children's books, but book covers. If you were to do your take on like the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or Ender's Game, any of these, book Fablehaven, any of these books that just have massive readerships, and maybe Harry Potter's really well served by the fan art community.
Right.
But if you're like served one of these communities that has a like a ravenous fan base, but they don't get enough people doing fan art, you could get a lot of new followers in that specific community, and chances are you get the eyeballs of an art director or an editor on your stuff, and they'd reach out and say, hey, kind of like what you did for that, how about you do something for this over here? So
I did a reimagined cover for Lord of the Rings, and my agent actually put it out and as an ad, and I got a ton of response off that thing.
that's cool. Yeah.
So
I figured you
thing.
would,
It's fun.
because you've got such a unique style. I think both of you guys, man, if Will did Lord of the Rings too, that would be
That'd be
so
so
cool,
fun.
because the perception of it now is so based on Peter Jackson's vision of it, that anytime anybody sort of bucks that and does something different, like it immediately grabs people's attention. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Question
All right,
answered.
so I just won that one. I feel like against Will, so that's a W.
I don't like this being a competition. It brings.
I'm just claiming W's though wherever Will did, because I'm scared if I don't claim it, Will claim the W, and then I'll default to an
I'm already
L.
so far ahead. I've stopped counting.
I just won again.
Okay. Julie asks, personal projects versus no clients anxiety. Okay. She says, do you feel uneasy when you don't have any clients projects coming in? I decided to take fewer jobs this year to work on my personal projects, and in combination with the pandemic and economic slowdown, I don't have any clients at the moment. I've saved up money, so finance isn't a big problem, but still there's this weird anxious feeling. Any tips on how to deal with it? I want to hear what you guys think.
It's a good one.
I early on in my career, let's say the first 10 years, been doing this for 30, I would straight up panic. I mean, as the sole breadwinner in my family of 5, wife and 3 sons, when this question takes me straight back there. And I can tell you the times where I was like, that's it. It's over. I had a good run for 5 years. All the naysayers in my life are going to be right. They're going to have the last laugh. My father always wanted me to get a real job, quote unquote.
Yeah.
As I came from a family of, he was a PhD, and my mom had a master's degree. My sister was Phi Beta Kappa, and they were all academics. And then along comes Willie, the artist, and they didn't know what to do with me. And so there was this huge pressure for me to perform, to prove to them that I was in a legitimate field, that I wasn't,
right.
And boy, when that lull came, straight up panic. I remember one time, it was a February, and I didn't get a single job for like probably the last week in January, all through February. And then I finally got something in March. And during that time, I couldn't tell my wife, because I was afraid that I would panic her. You know what I mean? So I had to just kind of pretend that everything was going to be fine. And when she would ask me, like, you haven't gotten anything for a while. Are we? Oh, this is normal, And inside I'm dying. Those times always ended. And what I did was I used that time to be productive and to work on my portfolio and to send out. And this is counter, this is counterintuitive, because I would start working on promotion, sending out postcards during that time where I was struggling for money and yet needed to spend money to spend time and money to send something out to get more work in, which was really hard because, and sometimes that went on the credit card. And today's will would have told yesterday's will is, instead of only thinking of yourself as a freelance illustrator, work on other projects that can also bring in money. So some of the other things that I've worked on are, writing books, working on my convention brand to sell, working on a game that I'm working on right now, teaching, and starting. That's how SVS came about. Was this need and this desire to say, well, I'll welcome the downtime because it gives me more time to work on my own personal projects and other streams of income that can come in. There's a lot of ways to make money as an artist, and being a freelance illustrator is just one of them. And so that's what I would do is look at it as time to work on you, and look at it as time to work on the things that you really, really want to do. I had 2 friends that I can think of that when they would go through this time, they got into fly fishing. And so whenever they would have a downtime in their freelance illustration, they hit the river. And neither one of them are illustrators today. Neither one of them are working in illustration at all. One of them's a gallery painter, so he's doing good. He's doing okay. But the other one's not doing anything with art and laments that time as, I should have done what you did, which was to work on my portfolio, work on building my business. So
I think that's solid.
But the question is, how do you get rid of the anxiety when you're doing self-directed projects? Is that correct?
Like she's just saying the client projects aren't coming in, and she has some anxiety with that.
So and my answer is, I satisfy it with work. Be in motion.
I agree.
Be working. Don't just sit there waiting for an email to come in. Yeah,
I agree. Everything Will said is totally accurate. I think that's true. But the one thing I want to add is that when you do start creating stuff for yourself, you say, okay, the client's not going to come in and pay me, so I'm going to create something myself. That feeling is so nervous. Not just like, oh, the money's not coming in from clients, but directing yourself and saying, I'm going to make something. I remember when I decided to launch my Kickstarter, and this is after I've done tons of books and been fairly successful in the field of illustration. I just said, I'm going to do my own thing. And I remember that day that I launched it, and it was, for some reason, it didn't hit me until I launched. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a huge public failure if this doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because other times publishers are going to pay me, and if the book fails, well, it's all of us involved, and maybe if the writing wasn't good, or maybe they didn't market it. But this one was sort of all on me. So when you do direct yourself to that self-directed kind of project, when there's no client work coming in, and you want to make something out of it, there's anxiety with that part too. And so that's, I just want to say that that's like a really natural thing, and maybe even more so than you have with a client thing, because it really is all you. I mean, my tarot deck is sort of the same way now. Like I'm all in now. I've already mentioned it, and I've already done stuff, and it's on my Instagram. And it's okay, here I go. And maybe it'll flop. And that feeling is always there.
I think too, like for me, if I look back on the day in these in between, even when I have enough work to do, if I could look back on the day and say at least moved the needle a little bit on something that's more long-term, something that's eventually or is currently passive income related, then I'm going to be all right. Things will work out. And so that relieves some of the anxiety, because I do have that same thing. Like right now I'm like, geez, should I take on a freelance job? The bills are paid, or at least the funds are there for the next couple months, right? But what about after that?
Right.
What about, should I got to start worrying about the fall as that's coming up. Should I be like planning ahead for that? But I think as long as you've got things in place and you're moving that needle, and every day there's something productive happening, at least for me, that helps with the anxiety. Okay. Well, I think we did it. I think we answered all our questions for today. You guys good?
Do you guys have any questions for me?
Will No, I don't actually.
What is the price of Bitcoin and your thoughts on digital currency?
Yeah, I'm curious.
we don't have
We could
enough
go another hour. Actually, I will say this, speaking of NFTs, so there is I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I went to a Zoom meeting last night for this platform that's coming out, or probably already out now by the time this podcast airs. But essentially, they use a thing called Wax to do all of their blockchain NFT stuff, and the amount of energy consumption of Wax compared to Ethereum and Bitcoin is like, it's like if a transaction, an NFT transaction on the Ethereum blockchain is equivalent to 100,000 light bulbs, running for an hour. Wax is one light bulb running for an hour. It's like that stark of a difference. So essentially it is, they've solved that environmental issue with creating NFTs. And so that's kind of exciting to me, because
I wish I understood the technology more on, like, because where my mind goes with that is, then what are they missing? In other words, if it takes that much energy for them to authenticate a transaction, or if there's a value in the spending of that much energy for other reasons, my mind says there has to be reasons that I don't understand. And then, can it be done securely? And is it an actual competing technology, or is it done in a way that is unsecure, or is there other vulnerabilities? Yeah. Are there other vulnerabilities that they're not taking into consideration? Are there shortcuts they're taking?
Yeah, I mean, look up Wax, because that's what like all the video games base their NFTs on that blockchain. So if you make something in, let's say Minecraft, and you want to sell it, it's usually done on the Wax blockchain. If you get a new skin for Fortnite or something, it's usually done on Wax. So it's like, it's solid. It's where it's at. And so these guys are like, well, let's use it for art. Let's use it for art NFTs. It's already there. It's already, in place. And so I could send you like some links to things you could check out for that. So anyways,
I have a follow-up on some stuff. Back to remember we did the brief little intro on how to rate things.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I'm going through, and I'm looking at the way that our the SVSLearn site is. We actually have to approve all the messages. All the reviews. I hate doing it. I wish it would just automatically do it. But the one thing I want to add is, as I go through this and see it, I'll see a description that says, this class was the best I've ever had in my life. It changed my whole outlook. And then they forget to actually add the stars. So it's actually 0 out of 5 stars. And then it counts against us when you don't add the stars. So you have to add the stars if you guys are given ratings, not just on this side. This is just a general rating kind of thing. So add the stars if you're reviewing stuff, because it kind of brings down the thing. It says it's the best class I've ever had, and then it's 0 stars, so it brings us down. It
really is the bane of our existence as far as reviews are concerned. It's the same with Amazon.
It has a dollar value. I mean, it really does. It changes on whether something looks successful or not. And I'd hate for something to really good to get canceled because of that. The opposite side is I'm looking at my light and shadow course, which is the best course on light and shadow you've ever taken in your life. If anybody hasn't seen it, there's probably 200 reviews, all 5 stars. And then out of that 199 5 stars and 1 star.
That was me.
So they intentionally, it says Will Terry. No. And it's just addressing something that's not in the video. They're like, why wasn't this in the video?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, I mean, like most of the time when a teacher does a video, they say, here's what I'm going to be covering and here's why. And you can't cover exhaustively I mean, for me to do a light and shadow class that literally covered every single situation where light would be cast on something, it would just be too technical. And I chose to go the route of here's how artists use light, not necessarily how light's going to fall across a really complicated object. I'm not the guy for that, for sure. But that's what this person's looking for. Like, I want a light falling on this really complicated thing. I need to be able to map it. And so they didn't like the class. And you just gotta see what you're getting. You know what I mean? And think, okay, did they do what they wanted to do?
It's interesting what students bring or don't bring as well. Speaking of that, because I worked with someone who took one of my classes on SBS who was saying that he couldn't figure out how to start drawing a character. And so we had this email back and forth. And after about 5 emails back and forth, I said, let's jump into a Zoom call and let me see if I can figure out, because there was a disconnect. There's something that I'm not understanding from his perspective and something that he's not understanding from mine.
Yeah.
And so we jumped in there, and his basic thing was, and it was a problem that I had when I was in school, so I related to it perfectly. And he said, I just don't know where to start. Like the first marks. And I said, okay. I didn't either. And I told him a story about how I plagiarized the nursery rhyme, the three little fiddlers. Is that, what's the one with 3 fiddlers? Oh, Old King Cole. The poem Old King Cole was a merry old soul, and he had 3 fiddlers. And so that was the part of the story that I illustrated for an assignment in college. And I didn't know how to start drawing King Cole. Like, where do you start? And so I went to the library and I got an illustration. I copied it and felt bad and got an A, and realized that I was delaying my education because that A meant nothing to me.
Right.
And so anyway, so I told this guy that story, and then I said, well, let's take a character and let's start with basic shapes: circle, triangle, square. Would you, what would you say this character resembles more? And, and he's like, maybe a circle, or, like a sphere. So we started there. I started building it up, and I drew on my screen in front of him and asking him questions like, okay, and what about this and that? And then after I got the basic shapes blocked in, I went ahead and just started to kind of connect the dots a little bit and put a face on and different things. And he's like, see, you can do it, but I can't. I have no idea where to start. And at that point, I was kind of speechless. And I felt like a failure as a teacher. And I felt like, and then I, as I went away from him, we kind of parted, and I said, well, just try what I did, try to start with those basic shapes. But I was thinking about it later on, and I was like, and I think I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he was talking about his stand-up. And he said some audience don't bring anything to the table. Like a good night for him, it's 50% him, 50% the audience, and their enthusiasm or lack thereof.
Right.
And that's kind of what I felt like with teaching now, is that sometimes I can't make you draw.
Right.
I can't make you start.
You can't do it for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to, you guys guess how many stars this is. The title is Jake Parker is the Best Teacher. This is for your prop drawing class, Jake.
All right. That sounds like a 5-star review right there.
No. It's 0. You get nothing. You get
Jake
nothing for
has
that.
beyond stars. We're doing black holes now, like supernovas. That's so. But going back to Will's thing, that's so interesting. It's like, I think the more successful artists or creative peoples on any level are those people who can see someone do something and figure out whatever mental mechanics it takes for them to sit down and do that thing. And especially if you watch someone draw something in front of you from scratch, to be able like, well, he started with a circle, I could start with a circle. I know how to draw a circle, but but if you can't do that, chances are this is not the profession for you, or any, I don't know if anything's possible.
My theory
Right.
is that some people are so paralyzed by the thought of failure that starting is petrifying.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess on that one.
Yeah. And to that I say, like, you're going to learn more from making bad art than you are going to learn from making no art.
Mm-hmm. Well,
know?
and if he was able to just sit down and draw something amazing from that little lesson, there would be no value in it. He wouldn't appreciate it, and it would be
Yeah. And that's the thing I've been thinking about too. It's like the hardest in any situation, the hardest hurdle to overcome is 0 to 1. 1 to 2 is easy compared to 0 to 1. Like having nothing and making one out of nothing, that really is like where the magic is.
Yeah.
I read this article. It's John Schwarzenegger. He's like the longest running writer on The Simpsons, right?
Arnold.
No, not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyways, and his is a funny interview because this guy's hilarious. I mean, his humor is what made the show what it was. But they asked about his process, and he said, "What I'll do when I write is I have to write a script from start to finish, regardless of how good it is. So I'll just sit down and I'll write an episode of The Simpsons, and it'll be bad, and I'll have stuff in it. Like Homer walks into the room, Marge says, 'Hey, what's up, Homer?' And Homer says nothing. There's no joke there. But he's like, once I have a finished script, the hard job is writing a script. The easy job is fixing one. I can go in and be like, oh, that doesn't work. I can fix that. So I apply that to art too, or anything you're doing. Make it bad, but just make sure it exists, and then start working on the fun, easy stuff, and that's fixing it, making it better.
Right. That's good advice.
All right, should we wrap it up?
We should
Let's wrap.
put a bow on it.
Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody. 3-Point Perspectives made possible by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. Also, check out childrensbookpro.com and get on our waiting list for the next launch of our Children's Book Pro course. You're not going to want to miss that if you're wanting to be a children's book illustrator someday. So I think it's really helpful. Our podcast is, your hosts, I'll say that, have been Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker. You can find Will Terry's artwork at willterry.com, and his Instagram account is at willterryart. And then Lee White, you can find his artwork at leewhiteillustration.com, and his Instagram account is leewhiteillo. And you can go ahead and find my stuff at jakeparkerart.com, and follow me on Instagram at jakeparker. Podcast is edited and produced by Daniel Tu. That's Daniel TU. Go check out his website. It's daniel2tu.co. And our producer here at SVS Learn, David Bro. Thanks for all the work that he does. Get this thing up and running and going. And special thanks to Lisa Fott, who is our social media specialist. So that's our team running behind this podcast here. Thank you guys for all that. If you like this episode, please share it around. You can share the YouTube link. You can share the podcast itself on whatever podcast listener you listen to. Please leave a comment on YouTube, leave a review on iTunes. These things live and die by the word of mouth that people say. And if you want to join in on this discussion, go to our forum, svslearn.com. Click on the link to the forum there and sign up to become a member of the forum and join in on this discussion. There's a thread devoted specifically to this topic or what we talked about today. All right, that's it. See you guys next time.